When it comes to trying new ingredients, we always have lots of choices. So why not try substituting a healthier alternative for a traditional one? Change some flavors and change some old habits.
Let me share a secret recipe. Discover an ingredient that fires your imagination. Choose other flavors to match. Find the best way to cook them. My secret recipe? Cooking without a recipe.
When I'm at the supermarket, I can never resist buying some new ingredients, trying out some new flavors. I might not know exactly what I'm going to do with them until I get to the kitchen, but that's the fun part. Like lean, healthy ground turkey, low in fat, cholesterol, and calories, a great alternative to ground beef. But you know, around here, new ingredients don't make the cut unless they taste good, and this does. You can use ground turkey to make taco filling, a meat sauce for pasta. It makes a really good meatloaf too. When you're making a meatloaf, you need to add two basic types of ingredients to the meat. Things that add flavor and things that add texture. Now here's a texture tip. When the meat cooks, it shrinks a bit and it squeezes out moisture. So you need something to soak up that juice. And for that, your best bet is breadcrumbs. A splash of milk will add some moisture, and an egg will help hold everything together. It's a glue of sorts. Baking off a loaf of ground meat is actually quite French. I mean, in essence, that's what a pâté or a terrine is. Traditionally, just a way to take some leftover or less than tender meat, grind it up, mix in some disguising flavor, and show it off. You know, like Mom used to do with her meatloaf. Of course, you don't need to disguise ground turkey. You do need to mix some flavor into it, though. The best place to start is with some old-fashioned and oh-so-French onions and garlic. Lots of flavor here. Lots of flavor here, too. In fact, you could mix a theme into your meatloaf with some chili powder, some cheddar cheese, and a can of beans for Southwestern. Or you could add some Italian flair with basil or oregano. Or you could just keep it French with thyme.
You can do it.
It doesn't get all that hot in a meatloaf though, so give these a quick flavor jump start. These will add lots of meaty flavor to the ground turkey. But if everybody at your table doesn't appreciate meaty mushroom flavor, you can always take a page out of that French cookbook or your mom's cookbook and just chop them up and disguise them. I mean, hey, what you don't know can't hurt you, right? Mushrooms are purely optional, but there is one other secret ingredient that seems to show up in every meatloaf. Ketchup, which actually has a secret ingredient of its own, sugar, and lots of it. So sometimes this isn't your best choice. Instead, why not use an alternative? Some pure, intense tomato flavor, tomato paste, and perhaps a few drops of savory Worcestershire. Ground meat is actually very strong. It's really good at grabbing and holding other ingredients. So you don't have to be tentative when you're adding flavor. In fact, the best meatloafs are crammed with flavor. I love thyme and meatloaf. Then just mix away. "350 degrees is perfect for cooking meatloaf. Try this sometime. With all that flavor mixed in there, no one will ever know it's turkey. Not that there's anything wrong with turkey." One of the best things about cooking is all the new ingredients and ideas you get to try, especially when you're looking for healthy flavors. Like ground turkey and a classic meatloaf, flavored with onions, garlic, mushrooms, thyme, tomato paste, and Worcestershire, all held together with breadcrumbs and egg, and a little splash of milk for extra moisture. You don't have to sacrifice flavor when you're cooking with healthier choices. You can have your cake and eat it too. Or maybe even a pie. But I'm not kidding myself. A pie is always going to be a treat, but even in baking, you can still make healthy choices. So instead of a classic pie crust, how about a whole grain crust that tastes better and it's easier to make? Most pie crusts rely on plain white flour and some kind of fat like butter or shortening to add flakiness and strength. They taste great, no doubt, but they're not doing you any favors in the health department. So why not try something different? Because you can also make a wonderful pie crust with whole wheat flour and oats. Cup and a half of whole wheat flour, 1 cup of oats, also a whole grain, a half teaspoon of salt, 2 miserly, tiny little spoonfuls of brown sugar. Oil will help the crust crisp nicely, and it adds some flavor, and it's a much better choice than butter or shortening because it's liquid at room temperature. Therefore, it doesn't clog up the works when you eat it. Half a cup. Now at the moment, this just looks like a bowl full of crumbs until you start adding some water to it. Start with about 4 tablespoons or so and see where that gets you. This will be the easiest pie crust you've ever made, and it tastes great too since it's loaded with whole grains. And you don't need to let it rest or relax in the fridge. It's ready to roll out right now. Just divide it up into 2 pieces and make one of them a little bit bigger than the other one. This one will be the bottom crust. You don't need as much for the top crust. Now for the filling. Golden Delicious apples are perfect for apple pies, mainly because they have a nice sweet and sour balance and they hold their texture really well in the pie. And you can save a little time by not peeling them too. You don't always have to peel apples for pies. The peels taste good too. Ripe fruit is juicy, so as these apples bake, they can make a runny filling and a soggy crust, but that's easy to fix. Just toss in a few spoonfuls of whole wheat flour. or 1 heaping spoonful of whole wheat flour. And of course, every apple pie needs a little bit of cinnamon and something to sweeten the filling up a bit. And honey is always a healthier choice than sugar. It also tastes better. And since honey is 10 times sweeter than sugar, a little bit goes a long way. Same thing with the cinnamon. A little bit of cinnamon goes a long way too. As the apples bake, they release quite a bit of steam, so pinch and tighten up these edges a bit so the steam doesn't blow them out. But give it somewhere to go. Poke a few vent holes right in the top. When you bake a pie, the top crust always bakes perfectly. It's exposed to the direct heat of the oven. But the bottom crust is another story. It's got moisture sitting on top of it and it's insulated by the pan. So the best way to make the bottom crust crunchy and crispy is to bake the pie as close to the bottom of the oven as you can. This will be the easiest apple pie you've ever made. Whoop. Stay still so we don't fall off. We all love healthy food, but sometimes not just for the nutrition, because healthy food can also be a great way to add some new flavors to your table. Like apple pie with a whole grain crust featuring whole wheat flour and oats, and for an extra crispy healthy crust, vegetable oil instead of butter. Great choices don't have to be lacking in the flavor department. Healthy food tastes good too. It's also a great way to try out some new flavors, like the world's most perfect food, quinoa. This is a super grain. It's packed with vitamins and minerals and nutrients. Ounce for ounce, it has more usable protein in it than meat. It's so good that NASA plans on growing it on any spaceship heading for Mars. Back here on Earth, though, I love its nutty flavor. I also like how easy it is to cook. It's still a good idea to give quinoa a rinse before you cook it. Then cooking it is as easy as cooking rice. All you need is a pot with a lid, and for every 1 part of quinoa, 2 parts of water. Add a pinch of salt. Bring this up to the simmer, and it actually cooks faster than rice does. Plenty of time to get a bowl full of salad flavors together to toss it with. Quinoa is flexible too. You can do anything with this that you can do with rice. You can cook it with chicken broth. You can season it any way you like in a colorful salad. Great salads are always colorful, and there's no lack of flavor here either. And for that matter, this is going to be pretty healthy, especially after the quinoa gets mixed in. You know, with ingredients like this, you can't go wrong, and it all starts at your supermarket. If I've learned anything about healthy cooking, it's that most of the nutritional decisions I make for my family are made right here in the supermarket. It's all about what goes in the cart and what stays out. It's surprisingly easy to know the difference. As you wheel your way through the fruits and vegetables, fill your cart with all the colors of the rainbow, and you're doing just fine. There's nothing wrong with meat until we eat too much. No problem. Just make sure your cart has more fish than meat in it, and you'll do just fine. Look for whole grain power wherever you go, and the closer to Mother Nature, the better. And liquid vegetable oils are your best choice for everyday cooking. Solid butter is a special occasion treat, but too much and things can get a bit sticky on the inside. And take a moment and read those labels, because if you can't pronounce it, sorbiton monosterati propionic, maybe you should just leave it on the shelf. Pinch of salt, bit of pepper, a big splash of olive oil, a bowl full of colors and a whole grain. This is the perfect salad. Healthy eating doesn't mean you have to dramatically overhaul your kitchen. It's more about a lot of little things done right. Even the mashed potatoes can get in on the act. I mean, you have to serve mashed potatoes with meatloaf. It's impossible not to. But you don't have to load them down with fat for them to taste great. It's a good idea to add two basic things to your mashed potatoes: moisture and flavoring. And usually butter takes care of both. But try substituting chicken broth and olive oil sometime. Not only do these taste great, but they're a lot better for you. There's lots of great reasons to make healthy choices for your family. Nutrition, of course, but it's also a great way to add flavor to your table and to try out some new ingredients, like quinoa. This was a staple of the Incan diet in South America centuries ago. This isn't bad either. Smashed potatoes cooked in chicken broth with olive oil mashed in. You don't have to add butter to potatoes to make them taste good. And until you tell everybody, they'll never know the meatloaf is made with ground turkey. They'll know it tastes good, though. The only thing missing here is a fork. That fork's going to come in handy here too, because you can also make healthy choices at dessert. This apple pie was made with a whole grain crust, and not only is it good for you, but it's tasty and it's easier to make than a traditional butter white flour pastry crust. A great big scoop of traditional ice cream would be perfect on each one of these, but if you're looking for an alternative, it's easy to jazz up some plain yogurt too. with a splash of maple syrup. And a splash of vanilla extract. Maple vanilla yogurt, now that's some healthy flavor. And the leftovers taste good too. You know, sometimes the challenge is just getting past the word healthy. It sounds difficult, or worse yet, like it doesn't taste good. But maybe this is the best way to look at it. You're not taking anything away, you're adding new flavors. Quinoa. And we have some meatloaf. What do you think of the meatloaf? How's the quinoa?
Mean this? Good.
Some apple pie with a whole grain crust. Is that pie talking? Let me hear him. What's he saying?
Eat me, eat me.
So what do you think? Does it taste healthy?
Yes. And very good.
Eat me, eat me.